Well, I came to the university in the fall of 1951, and the head coach at that time, or the coach at that time, was Holly Lepley. It was a new experience for me. I had done high school swimming at Hastings, where I grew up and graduated from high school. I hadn't had much of an experience. I was fortunate to have a very good high school coach who started swimming in our high school, and he graduated from the University of Iowa. His name was Harold Krizan, and that's kind of where my swimming started. To move to Denver, join the Air National Guard, and spent some time in part-time jobs until they took me in, and I did my basic training and then came back to Lincoln. And I came back to Lincoln with the idea that there might be a job opening at Lincoln High School, and sure enough, their longtime head coach, Harry Cookland, retired, and I got the nod. And since I had physical education, and they needed physical education in the elementary schools, I became a physical education teacher, moving from one school to another, and then coaching in the evenings or in the afternoon with the high school team at Lincoln High. The other two high school coaches came to me and said, "Hey, Lincoln Swim Club has a club here but no coaches." And I said, "Well, why don't all of us coach?" And they said, "Well, we're married and you aren't." So they kind of pushed me into that, and my college coach asked me to do it, and so I became also the coach of the Lincoln Swim Club. And we had a lot of young women and young men. Women were really beginning to take off in swimming locally. A lot more girls were being involved in the sport, and it was really starting to expand. And I spent two more years at Lincoln High School, and I was doing graduate work in guidance and counseling, and in my fourth year I taught physical education and was a counselor at Millard Leffler Junior High. Continued to coach the Lincoln Swim Club, and at the end of my third year, the university coach asked me if I would be a part-time volunteer assistant, and so I resigned my swimming coaching job at Lincoln High and did that and continued. In the meantime, got married, and then the job at the Omaha Athletic Club, which was a big swimming institution in Omaha, resigned to take a job in another city, and that job came open, and I was urged to apply for that job, which I did, and I received, I got the job, so I moved to Omaha, and that same year, the university coach took a sabbatical. And he said, "Why don't you coach at the university?" And I said, "Well, I'll be in Omaha." He said, "Well, see if they'll let you off." So I talked to the powers that be, and they said, "Yeah, be sure you get your morning businessmen's program, your noon businessmen's program, and your after evening swim team done," which I was able to do. I had to commute between the two cities. It was a fun winter. We had a lot of real cold weather. But I did commute to the university at that time, and that happened to be the same year that Bob Devaney came. And also at that same time, Nebraska football fortunes were taking off, and the athletic director was Tippy Dye, and he okayed my taking the job, and we had pretty good success. We hosted the at that time Big 7 conference championships at the Lincoln High Pool, and we took second place in the meet, which was the highest that Nebraska had ever won in swimming. And when that year was up, Tippy Dye asked me if I would stay on in the future if the regular coach decided that he was going to move on. And I said, well, I'll consider it. So I went back to my job in Omaha, but the athletic director, who was from my hometown at Westside, said, called me up and said, would you be interested in coaching our boys swim team at the Downtown Y in Omaha? I said, well, I'll have to check with my boss, and he said, sure. It's not going to take you away from anything that we feel is essential at this point. And the fellow who asked me to take the job, he said, now we're building a swimming pool. In my first year, we lost by 27 points or something. And I really felt badly about that. And then the next year, we tied. And that was John Rita's 8th year, I believe, and our first year. And then came to the mid-70s. We had a nice run there with boys swimming, and I think it was 1977. We had a three-way meet with Lincoln Southeast and Prep and ourselves, and I think we won 4 or 5 in a row. After my first year at Westside, Tippy Dye, the athletic director, called me and asked me if I would take over the job because Dick Class, the coach, had gotten a job in Washington, D.C. And I looked at it at that time. I looked at the facilities at the university, the old Coliseum pool, knowing what the limitations were there. And I saw this growing thing in West Omaha, in our school district, but the whole West Omaha, the swimming thing, was really moving forward. It was a pretty big dynamic thing. And I turned it down. And my friend John Rita took the job, left his job at Southeast. And, you know, Devaney was having his success, but Nebraska didn't get a new facility. And that continued and to the mid-70s, to the point where the other schools had gotten new facilities and they refused to come to Lincoln to compete against the university. And it was really a sad thing because Coach Rita was really a profoundly good coach. He was on the cutting edge of ideas and did a marvelous job of coaching, where he took 0 at Southeast and built 8 consecutive state championships. But as it turned out, it was hard to get people to come and swim at Nebraska at that time, basically because they didn't have a facility. And so, 1970, I think it was the fall of, or the spring of 1978, Bob Devaney and Don Bryant came to the pool at Westside, and Coach Devaney asked me if I would be interested in the University of Nebraska coaching job. The year before, they had opened the Devaney Center in that pool.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't enough time for John Rita to turn the program around. And, you know, it ended up being what it was. Anyway, I decided to do that. And so I looked him up. His name was Jeff Huber. And he had some kids who were diving in that community college championship. He came back and he signed. Best move I ever made. He developed a diving program second to none. And the diving portion of our swimming and diving team was that diving really did the job on more than one occasion. And anyway, I got these people to come back to Nebraska, convince them. I had a couple of Swedes that I was able to get back, and they put me in touch with another Swede, and we got more kids from California. We tried to convince them that the weather really wasn't all that bad in the wintertime here in Nebraska. But we got some good kids in, and they were hard workers, and they did the job. We didn't win the championship our first year, but we did win it the next year for several years running. And we relied on getting good people, good students, people who were interested in their swimming and diving being at the highest possible level. We traveled a lot across the country for Christmas training. We were in touch with people overseas